Hey guys, good morning. Okay, so today's demo video is going to go over how to make and finish our Elements of Art accordion booklet. So what we're going to really go over today is how you need to approach drawing the object first, and then I'm going to talk to you individually about each and every one of these elements. So you can see here, like we'll talk about the line, we'll go into shape, and I go into, and y'all will get to see me make each one of these guys. So let's get started. Hey guys, all right, so this is the tutorial that's going to kind of explain how to approach drawing this and illustrating each of your elements. So what I've done is I kind of put in the corner what I want. I did it very lightly and in pencil, what I want each of these pages to be. So far I have line, shape, texture, form, space, and let's see, what else am I missing? Color and value. Now, what you want to start doing is drawing your creature or your object or whatever you've chosen to draw, and give a brief outline, very simple, just to kind of get an idea of where you want it to be. Okay, so that's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to kind of get a circle on there for all my turtles, their little shells. And mind you guys, this tutorial, I'm taking a very short amount of time to do this, but I do not want you guys to finish this super fast. You should be taking your time and really trying to make this look good. That's why I've given you guys a lot of time to work on this, okay? There's my turtle, the head of my turtle. Get that on there. And his little feet, or fins, I guess. This guy's, I don't know what he is. If he's a sea turtle or he's a land turtle. I haven't really decided. And then get his little tails on there. And I see how I'm drawing these very quickly. They don't need to be super detailed right now because we don't really know what we're going to do for each element. Okay, so from here, what I decided to do with this one is illustrate lines. So what I've gotten is a pen and a Sharpie. You can use colored pens, colored Sharpies, colored pencils for this. It really doesn't matter. I just personally like the contrast that a Sharpie or a black pen gives to your artwork. So what I'm going to go and do right now is create some different line designs. The key with doing line is to make sure that it stays aligned so it doesn't connect. So see what I did here? This ends up becoming a shape. So what you really want to do is try to not connect your lines so they become shapes, but instead keep them broken up as lines, kind of like I'm doing here. So I'm going to continue along all the way across my little turtle guy. Across his shell, and continue to make these little swirly line patterns. Okay, Now, I need to figure out what I want to do for this part. So I'm thinking of kind of just breaking up that space into more of these swirls, okay? And remember, the point or the way to illustrate line the best is showing a variety of lines. So a variety of thickness. So I used a thicker pen. And now I'm going to add some smaller lines and see what that does to my design. I'm going to add some smaller lines inside here. See if that creates anything remotely cool looking. And remember, you don't have to just illustrate or design the object that you're drawing itself, but you can also add designs and textures in the background. So once I'm done kind of designing his little shell here, I am going to create a background as well. So for his legs, I'm just going to kind of continue. Now I'm going to do this like, I don't even know what kind of design you would call this. Squiggly lines for his legs. And do the same thing over here. I am a big stickler for consistency, but that is in my own personal artwork. If you would like to have every, leg of your object or creature look different, you can. But I just personally like when it's all very unified. So I'm going to add the rest of those squiggles to these legs here, all the way down. Okay. Now for his tail. I think what I want to do, I might do the same thing just to kind of keep it consistent. There's his little tail. And now for the head. So for the head, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to break these up into some cool line designs. Kind of like little dash lines. Now with this, I know, some of you might want to have some shapes in there and that's fine, but the main focus needs to be line. So when I look at your project, I should be able to say that this square 100% represents line, okay? And it doesn't represent any other element but that. So that's all that you want to make sure that you do. All right, so there's my turtle. Now I need to figure out what I want to do with the background. So since I used quite a few of the smaller lines for the legs, I kind of want to balance the space. So I'm going to add some heavier lines in the background to kind of break up that space. And I'm going to kind of make it like a really thick line too. Now some of you might say, oh, Miss L, that's a shape. But actually, it's just a really, really thick line. And the way that you tell it's a line is because it's continuing in a certain direction, okay? While as a shape would eventually stop. A line continues. So I'm going to add another one over here. And then I have these lines kind of going off the paper. And then this one's going to kind of come back and circle around like that. Okay, so now I'm going to fill in this line because I want it to be a really thick one. So notice how I'm doing a variety of lines. I've got like those medium lines on the shell, the actual body of the turtle has really thin lines, and then in the background, I'm adding some really, really thick lines or big lines. So we've got a variety. We got the big, the medium, and the small, okay? Now you can choose to leave it like that. I kind of like, balancing the busy with the simple. So, you want to leave a little bit of white space. You don't want to kind of overwhelm it too much. So I think my last thing that I'm going to do is kind of just add another line that's outlining my big, gigantic lines. And then once I do that, I think I'm going to be done. Now, if you were like me and wanted to sketch out before you started with a pen or anything, or a Sharpie, and you wanted to draw your object first, you're probably going to have pencil marks all over your paper. So what I'm going to do is when I'm done adding these last little bits of lines, I'm going to take an eraser and kind of erase those old pencil lines just to make it really nice and clean looking. So let me get this last little bit on here. All right, so now once I've done that, I'm going to get that eraser and gently go over it. If you're using one of those liquid pens, see what happened to my turtle? How I had those little smears? So you might want to wait until you feel like everything is nice and dry and then erase, okay? So while we're waiting for this to dry, let's talk about shape. So for this one, this is going to be my shape. And I kind of started to like plan out how I wanted this to look already. But what I'm going to do is, see my little pile of sticky notes. Of course, they're sticking to my table and I can't move them. Didn't think that through. But I am going to add glue and really just start kind of piecing these together and seeing what I come up with. And I might just scrap my whole design altogether that I had already planned out because I kind of like the randomness. I think I'm going to make it more random than I am planned. So what I'm going to do is just kind of start piecing sticky notes on top of each other. And when they're overlapping like this, they're going to create their own shapes out of it as they overlap one another. So as I go, just add a little bit of glue down and stick them down. And you can do this step with this type of material. You could do it with notebook paper. You could use an old book and cut a couple pages out of there and do this with book pages, or print out. If you have a printer at home, this might be really cool. You could print out the lyrics to your favorite song and cut them up and then rearrange them onto your object. What are some other fun things? You could also, I'm gonna move this guy over here. You could also do this with magazine paper, with newspaper. You can go get, if your parents subscribe to the, what's the main newspaper here? The American Statesman. You could take that paper and kind of cut it up. And create some cool shapes and patterns with that. You really have a lot of options with this to add cool things. So I'm continuing to kind of piece together mine. And then I think for the background, it does help to kind of change up what you work with, because if I did sticky notes for the background too, that's going to be a little busy, right? And I don't want to make it too busy. So let's kind of get those on there. Should have cut up some smaller pieces, but you know, you live, you learn. That's why we're in art, to make mistakes. Mistakes are cool. I feel like I don't have enough pink in this corner. Add more pink. Over here. There we go. Pink. Now maybe I just covered up some green, but I'll add some more green. Yay. So you can kind of see how my turtle shell is starting to piece together. Okay, now I'm gotta figure out how I want to approach the shapes for the actual body of my turtle. So what I think I'm gonna do is, you know, set aside these guys, and I've got, here we go. I'm gonna use some magazine paper and find some cool textures. So I'm flipping through here. What would be like a good, almost scaly looking texture for my turtle's skin? I could use, this might be cool to have like a wood texture to my turtle. So I'm going to tear this page out and set my magazine aside. And then what I'm going to do is kind of roughly cut out the shape of my turtle head. So I'm going to kind of trace it first about that size. So now I'll take my scissors and cut out that general shape for my turtle's head. And it probably would have been smart to not use Sharpie to trace this. But like I said, you live, you learn. So I'm going to kind of trim it down so that it really fits our little turtle guy. That's a pretty cool looking head. And now we're going to get his feet. So I'm going to cut out some more of that wood texture, or wood pattern, I guess, not texture. Then I'm going to create his two little front fins, or feet, fins, feet, whatever you want to call them. There we go. So I'm going to kind of place these here and here. One is definitely bigger than the other, but I'll have to go back and fix that at a later time. All right, and now for his feet and his tail. So for his feet, I guess I'll use the same pattern. Just kind of round off these edges that I cut. I could be cutting this, like I said, a lot better, but I want to try and avoid making this demo longer than 30 minutes. So, you know, I'm not making this as neat as I would be if I was in your position and this was my assignment. Okay. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to be too sloppy with this. You want to really try and make this look good, because I'm giving you guys a lot of time to do this. Now, obviously, you know, if you'd rather not cut a bunch of stuff out and glue it down, you can draw as well. So that's what I'll probably do for my background, just to kind of show you all the different options that you've got. Okay, so let me push down, you know, my little, and you might realize like, oh, you know, I really don't like how I did this. I want to redo it. Well, the good thing is you can always cover up what you did. So if I decide that I really didn't like adding the magazine paper and I want to maybe be more consistent and stick with the sticky notes, I could do that. I could totally come back and then, you know, just cover up those designs with sticky notes, okay? Which is what I might do, because I don't know if I'm wild about this. All right, so now for the background, I'm going to add some shapes. And I'm just going to use some colored pencils. You could use markers. It's entirely up to you, but I might try and be consistent in my colors. So I'm going to come around and add a bunch of different shapes and then shade those shapes in. I tried to grab the cool looking Prismacolor pencils, but unfortunately, I could not find those this morning. So I'm just coming around and adding some different shapes. There we go. And you could do this all the way around. So, you know, I'll shade mine in, keep going, making my shapes in different colors, having a variety of different stuff going on. Almost like a mosaic. You can think of this one like a mosaic. Or a bunch of different tiles. You know how tiles are pieced together, or if any of you play Tetris, it's going to be the same type of thing. You know, fitting pieces where you can get them to fit, okay? You come around here, add a few more shapes. And there's a lot of different ways that you can go about shape as well. There's two things called geometric shape and organic shape. And all that means, it's a fancy way of saying you've got shapes that have names and shapes that don't have names. For example, a geometric shape would be something like, think about the shapes that you learn in math or geometry or anything like that. That would be like a polygon, a hexagon, an octagon, a square, a triangle, a diamond shape. All of those shapes have names, so they are geometric shapes. But what about shapes, you know, like this one, like his little fin? It's still a shape because it's an enclosed space that's two-dimensional, but the difference is that there is no name for that shape. You know, it's very organic, it's unique. You probably don't see it too often, so we call those shapes that don't have names organic shapes. So right now I've got a good mix of both of those kinds of shapes going on. I'm almost done filling up my space. The more I do, the more I really, really don't like my magazine choices. And I think that's just because I'm kind of rushing through my art for the sake of this demo so that I don't, I'm not demoing for a million hours. But what I think I'm going to do is actually, if it's still, no, I'm going to have to cover it. I think I'm going to cover up my little magazine clippings, and I'm going to go with my sticky note, and just to stay consistent. I like consistency. I'm going to go back over this and add his little tail. And even though I'm being consistent, I'm also not going to really worry about the color of each of their fins, or each of his fins, and really just kind of give it a general shape, or a general color, staying within the colors that I've been using. All right, so now I'm going to kind of cut this. So he has a cute little back fin. I really probably should have looked up what a sea turtle looks like before I did this. I actually listened to my own advice that I gave you guys, but I didn't. So this might be accurate, and it might not be. Oh well. All right. I'm going to kind of pick that up, changing my mind. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to go back and use another sticky note. Get his front fins. There's one front fin. Here's another front fin. Oh, there we go. Okay, so from here, another thing that might be a good idea too is if you're going to do this combination like I did, where I'm like, I'm gluing stuff, but I'm also drawing or coloring in different shapes, you might want to start with coloring in your shapes first. So the opposite of what I did. So start with this before you go on to gluing everything down, because what I'm noticing is that when I was coloring, it was hard to go over the areas where I've glued with my colored pencil. So just kind of keep that in mind once you've made your decisions on how you want to start this. Boy, that turtle is going to look really weird. But weird is good. We're in art. That's when weird becomes cool. Okay, little guy. Now we're going to get your last back fin slash foot. We don't really know what it is. That's okay. This is one goofy looking turtle. Bless his heart. Alrighty. And actually, just to kind of differentiate between this turtle and my background, what I'm going to do is kind of go around with a Sharpie. You could do this with a marker, or you don't have to do it at all. But I just kind of wanted to make my turtle stand out from the background a little bit and add some more contrast. So I'm going to go around and kind of outline it just to make it pop a little bit more than it would if I didn't add this. going all the way around. And last but not least, we'll give our turtle some eyes and a nose. I don't really know what turtle noses look like, but hopefully they look like that. You could even go a step further if you wanted and kind of outline the shapes that you created with your paper. But like I said, all of this stuff is optional. You are the artist, and, you know, a part of creativity comes from having a little bit of your own say in something. So I don't want to give you too much direction because that will take away of the things that you could come up with. But I want to give you enough ideas and options so that you can think up some really cool stuff on your own that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, because two minds are always better than one. All right, so I am done with my shape element. Now I'm going to move on to texture, and I've been super excited about this because I kind of went crazy this morning and picked a bunch of random crap from my yard. So what I'm going to do is cut up a bunch of this grass that I have here. And that's what I'm going to use for the texture of his, shell. So rather than you sit here and watch me cut up a bunch of grass, I'm going to pause the video and we'll resume as soon as I have done that. Now that I have cut up my grass, I want to show you the other stuff that I kind of gathered from my house, aside from my grass and leaves. I found these little dried flowers from a bouquet my husband gave me. And what I did was I took them out of the trash and let them dry over a weekend. It probably took them a day or two to dry. And then I just picked off all these little buds. So you can see here, they used to look like this, but I've kind of picked them off so that they're now just a bunch of little balls, purple balls. You can see my grass here. And then I visited my mom the other day and I borrowed a little bit of her potpourri, which is, I don't even know what potpourri is. It's like a grandmother thing. So I borrowed a little bit of that, and hopefully she won't notice. But that is what I'm going to use for texture, because that's what we're going to focus on next. And remember, guys, anything that has a texture or a certain feel to it will work for this project. So let's say all you've got, are pencil shavings. Even pencil shavings could be really cool for this, okay? Just find stuff around your house and see what you can't glue on to this thing. Another option, and I think I'm going to show you this before I kind of do the actual texture, but we talked about implied texture last week. Implied texture is the way something looks like it could feel. So you can create that type of texture in a lot of different ways. I'm going to kind of flip this over and show you one way of going about that. So let's say this is my turtle shell, and I wanted to make a really bumpy, pebbly looking surface. So I'm just going to draw a bunch of different random shaped organic circular shapes. Some really, really small, others much bigger. And I'm just going to kind of piece them around, okay? And then notice how I'm not leaving any space between these. If you wanted to copy me and do this pattern, the trick to making it look really cool is not leaving space in between your pebbles. So if you think about it, and if anybody's ever seen like a cobblestone street, that's kind of what we're going for. So you've laid down all these pebbles and rocks and then kind of sealed it to walk on. So think of like, I know that there's hardly any cobblestone streets anymore, but if you time travel back into the 1800s, that's all they had. Anyways, okay. So this would be one way to create an illusion of a texture or an implied texture, because it looks like if I touch this that it would feel very bumpy, okay? But in reality, when I touch it, it's smooth. So that's what I mean by implied texture. If you would rather go this route than the gluing down method that I'm about to show y'all, you can. You're absolutely more than welcome to draw your texture. But just remember, if you're doing that, to not only do your object, but also give texture and design to your backgrounds. So like we've done on these two already, you don't want to leave the background blank. You want to add something to it that involves whatever element you're working on. Okay, so what I'm going to start with right now is actually the background first. So I'm going to just kind of lay some glue down, and I think I'm going to use that potpourri stuff, which is basically just dried petals that smell really weird. I don't know how they came to smell this weird, but you would have to ask my mom that question. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of push these down. Now, if you need a stronger glue, I got one for me just in case. I didn't know how much glue I'd be needing. The more textured what you're gluing down is, like if it's really bumpy and rough, like a regular glue stick might be hard for this stuff to stick down. Okay, we're kind of going along. So I'm going to glue all of these guys down, kind of going around my subject matter. I'm not being too precise about where I'm putting this stuff. I'm kind of just winging it, but I'm really, really hoping that it comes out not looking like a total hot mess. It very well possibly could, because in my opinion, I feel like my little turtle shape over there, I could have done a lot better on. I think he looks a little bit goofy, at least for my level of experience in art. I should be doing a little bit better than that. But it's okay, it's a demo, right? I'm not going to be selling this thing. If any of you are perfectionists in my classes, you feel my pain. I am very much a perfectionist, and I have had to work on that as I have grown older and, in my field as an artist, because when I was a kid, if I made a mistake, I would like straight up just toss that thing in the trash, which is not what you really want to do, because mistakes are actually how you help it. They help you. They help you discover new ways of doing things. And we'll have a project on that actually coming up in a week or two. But they really help you to break out of that need to start over. And be more accepting and problem solve when you make mistakes on your artwork, which is a really good thing to have. And honestly, I didn't realize how important it was until I was, my last year of high school / going into college, and really getting into oil paint. I would mess up all the time, and I just want to go and buy another canvas or paint it white again and start over. And that was just really setting me behind in my learning. So, moral of that very long and probably boring story is that mistakes are good, and don't freak out if you make them. Okay, now that I've got my little background going, I am going to start on the little fins. So I'm going to add my glue down here. And for the fins, I really wanted to use this grass, but I might have to make it just a little bit smaller. Oh crap, I didn't mean to do that. Oh well. Eek. Sorry guys. I know that in reality I'm 30 years old, but if you really know me, I act exactly like a 5-year-old. So please excuse my sound effects, because by the end of the year, you're going to be like, oh my God, Miss Lubo, you do sound effects for literally everything. So I apologize in advance for that if it becomes annoying. No, I'm back. Give me a little piece of grass. Okay. It looks not exactly like a fin. I could definitely take way more time doing this and making it look really good, but like I said, this is a demo and I really don't want to make a several day long demo. So we're just going to kind of speed up the process, and even if it looks a little stupid, we're just going to roll with it. Don't judge my poor little turtle. He's just having an off day. All right, moving right along, getting the grass on those other legs. I might have to say this guy is a land turtle and not a water turtle because it just looks, I don't know, more landish. I don't really know what I was going with that statement. You can just ignore me. Okay, now for the head, I feel like I need some smaller strips here. So what I'm going to do is really finely cut up some of my grass. That way it's easier to stick down and it's more, I can have it fit the shape I want it to fit in. So if this were a cooking class, we would be mincing the grass. That is a cooking term that I learned because I watch way too much of that stupid Top Chef show. Which is probably really bad for me because every time I watch it, I'm like really, really hungry. And then I end up cooking up a bunch of things or baking a bunch of things that I really don't need to be eating right now. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm rambling. Okay, that should be good enough for this little dude's face. Come on, my little turtle. I probably could have done better. Well, we're gonna just go with it. Come on, little guy. Yikes, this is turning into an utter disaster. I really could have made this look a lot better. Actually, my plan was to do this, the grass idea, with my toucan, but I accidentally left that example one behind today at home. So I am having to just be a little bit, I'm having to, I don't know what I'm trying to say. My ability to do two things at once is rapidly declining. Okay, so now I put a bunch of glue down for the shell of my turtle. And the reason why I'm using now this school glue is because a thicker, more liquid glue is going to make this more loose and very textured material stick just a little bit better. Because you can kind of pat it down into that glue and kind of make it an I don't know, seal it almost. Not really. There we go. So this is all made, guys, by stuff that you find in your backyard or your front yard or a park nearby or, you know, the corner of a street. You can find this stuff anywhere. Unless you live in the Sahara Desert, you can find this stuff. Okay, so there's my little earthy looking turtle. And now that my desk is covered in stuff, I am going to pause the video for just a minute so that I can get ready to show you what I'm going to do for form. So we'll be back in just a second. Hey guys, all right. So now we are moving on to form. You can see from my desk that I have been brainstorming lots of different ideas for how I want to do this. So my first thought was to kind of do like a cutout version and then glue or tape like a thick piece of paper, like folded paper on the back, and then flip it over and have it kind of pop off of the page like this. Which I still think that I like that idea, and I think I'm going to do it, but I'm going to approach it just a little different. Then I was thinking about like how he's still not 3D, he's still 2D. He needs to be, you know, have some mass to it. So I played around with like maybe doing like the fringe, paper fringe by cutting a bunch of little strips, or not strips, but little pieces, lines. I thought about doing that, and then I contemplated, you know, like putting on little crinkled bits of paper. And then I thought about this idea, which I still might do, but after that I even came up with a better one. So, but you can take a look at this. This, what I did was cut some purple paper into the shape of his shell. And I'm just going to kind of fold it back and forth like this. Almost like you would if you were trying to make like a paper fan. That's what it should be like. So I'm going to just keep folding this thing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until I get all the way to the other side. Press it down really well. Then see how it comes out and it's like ribbed? So I thought that that would be really cool for having, you know, like a little 3D shell. But then I thought of something else. I am, in case you have not noticed already, the queen of indecisiveness. I can never choose just one thing. So I apologize. But I did think about this because this is something you would totally find at home. I'm sure your parents have a random bag of beans somewhere in their pantry. Or you could do this with, you know, any kind of dried bean, dried lentils, dried rice. All of that would totally work. But I thought about kind of making this on my little turtle, making him have like a shell made out of these little beads. So what I think I'm going to do is go with my bean idea, because I think it's cute. All right. What I want to do now, before I start gluing the beans on, is kind of tape down. I think this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tape down this little bit of paper instead of gluing it down, because the glue tends to take a little bit longer to dry than just sticking it down with tape. So it gives it a little bit of a 3D aspect. Now, before I glue him to here and do the bead part, I want to decide how I want to approach the background. So what I'm going to do, since I'm not doing anything 2D, is kind of erase this little drawing because I really don't need it. It was just an outline of, you know, where the turtle was going to go, if you know what I mean. Okay, so what I was thinking is creating some type of pretty background and that like fades into two different colors. And unfortunately, the only colors I have right by me are gray and brown. So we're just going to go with gray and brown. So what I'm going to do is just use this marker, kind of go back and forth. You could do this with paint. You could do this with pencils, crayons, pens, cut paper, anything, honestly. So I'm just kind of going back and forth, getting that texture on there. Or that, not texture, that color. Sorry. I am not thinking straight today. There we go. All right, and then once I get about halfway down, what I'm going to start to do is lightly blend in the gray or brown or whatever the heck this color is. And it's totally out of ink. Hold up. Okay, I'm back. I could not find another brown one, so we are just going to switch to purple. So then I'm going to kind of start from the bottom, filling it in with my purple. I'm sure this would be so much prettier with something else. But something else meaning a different color. But oh well, you know, you got to work with what you get. So I'm just going to kind of have that fade up. And I'm getting lighter in my pressure that I'm pushing down with, the more I go up to create that kind of fade effect. Then I'm going to go back over it with my gray, see if I can't blend that a little bit better. And voila. Now, I know this looks absolutely terrible and I could have done a much better job, but you know, it's just, that's the way it is going to be. Okay. Now, I'm just kind of playing around with this real quick. No, okay. All right, so then what I want to do is glue down my turtle. And you can do that with tape. You could do that with glue very easily. I actually might do this one with tape just to kind of show my people who don't have any glue what that would look like. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit of duct tape here and kind of fold it into a loop like this. This will actually help create that 3D effect as well. Put it on the back of my turtle and place him right there. So now it's hard to tell, but you can kind of see him sticking up just a little bit, giving the illusion that he is 3D. Another thing that would help is to kind of create a type of shadow. Even if it's a fake shadow, like mine is, with the Sharpie, it gives a really neat looking effect and really makes it look like it actually is 3D. It's hard to see because I made the choice to use darker colors, but you can kind of see how it looks like it's coming off the page. Okay, so then I am going to go and glue my little dudes. Not dudes, what are they? Can't think of the word. Beans. There we go, beans. Okay, so rather than you sit here and watch me glue 500 beads down, I'm going to pause the video and show you the end result. Okay, so I unpaused it just to show you guys. See how I knew this was going to happen since my paper is not very thick. that this was going to start to sink down on the edges when I started putting the heavier beans on. So what I've done is just shoved little bits of folded paper underneath it so that our little guy doesn't sink. And hopefully that will help. Okay, so now you can see that I've got all of those down. He's still looking cool and 3D-ish. And I thought about, I don't know, I kind of like leaving him white like this, only because I think that since the background is so dark, if I even tried to really put some color on it or on him, that it would be, he would kind of blend into the background. So my thought for him was just to leave him white. If I were to do this over again, I think I would paint him or use markers and color him before I started gluing my little kidney beans down, or whatever these are. And then for the little eyes, I just used some more of the dried petal stuff. All right, so the 3D one is done. That's exciting. All right, now we'll move on to space. Now, space, you can just draw it. And with form too, you can also draw forms. I forgot to say that with this one. You guys, if you know how to draw a 3D, like a cube, you know how to draw 3D shapes or 3D forms, you can try and do that instead of going this route. It's totally up to you. I did want to show you this one other idea I had, which is to sew into your paperwork, which can look really, really cool, actually, if I were to do it right, although my needle and thread got stuck. But I'm sure a lot of you, your mom probably has this somewhere at home. You could maybe ask her. And it's just a regular piece of thread and a very dull needle. You don't need anything too sharp because this is paper. Also, I don't want you to poke your eye out. Okay. But what I was thinking of doing before my needle and paper got all jumbled is to somehow create like blue water, but out of yarn. So you could totally do this how I'm doing it by just, adding and sewing into the paper over and over, maybe in one direction, different directions, it doesn't matter. Or what you could do is really just scrap that idea and cut little pieces of thread and have that, be the background. But anyways, I just kind of wanted to show you that would be a great option for some of this other stuff that we've already done, especially our line from the very first one. It would be a great idea. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to take this out since I have other plans for my space. All right, now I think I've decided for this turtle, we're going to give him a nice outline in a black Sharpie. And I'm trying to make this dude look like he's crawling. Okay. And there's his little eyeballs. And I'll probably put some more designs on that, but this one is about space. So the trick with space is you want to be able to show that there is depth in the artwork. Like there's something underneath him or above him. So several ways of doing that would be to show, to overlap your shapes. So I'll show you here. So let's say, I probably should have done this a little bit smaller. Hindsight is always 2020. But what I might do is draw him just a little smaller this time. Okay. But anyways, so overlapping shapes. Overlapping shapes are going to be like this. If you've got maybe you drew, this is a really silly looking bird. But let's say you drew a bird and he's on a branch, right? Okay, there's my silly looking bird. Now, to add space would be to put things behind him. So let's say behind him, I'm going to have another branch. And notice how to put things behind something else, you want to draw all the way up to the object you want to go behind. And then just don't draw the line inside of that object. So like very simple form for this would be a rectangle. And then behind it, I'm going to start drawing a circle, but stop and don't draw it inside of the shape you want to be in front, okay? So here I kind of added another branch to this tree. And then behind that, I might do like a couple leaves. So we'll have this leaf going behind this little guy's head. Couple more leaves just to kind of give some idea of like an environment. You want to put your object into an environment. That's what that means. So, and then even behind this, I'm going to add in some clouds. You will probably make this look much nicer than I am right now, but that's okay. And then you could finish it by giving it a little color, which I think I'm going to do. So we'll give a nice little blue sky back here. And remember, I am moving very, very fast with this. You would want to color a lot nicer than this. Slow down, make it really nice and smooth. Make it look really good. But for the sake of this demo, I am just Speedy Gonzalez over here. So, color, 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 right? That's a great way to show overlapping shapes. Now for my turtle, what I think I want to do is actually, I kind of wanted to make him a little bit smaller, but since I already drew him in Sharpie, what I'm going to do is cover him up with this guy. And just lie it over there. We'll glue it on top. And the reason why is because I forgot about the design I wanted to do. So what I'm going to do is have this little guy kind of creeping or peeking over the edge of a swimming pool. So I'm going to draw like a diagonal line. So what you can see is the edge of the pool is behind my turtle because I didn't draw the line through the turtle, okay? And you know how pools always have like a tile edge or cement edge. So I'm just going to kind of show that there. And then what else I'm going to show is that label that's always on the side of pools that tells you how deep it is. So I'm going to draw that. Again, making sure that everything is behind my turtle. No lines are going through my turtle right now. And we'll make this 6 feet deep. So what I'll do is draw Trying to make it look as much like the side of a pool as I can. So 6, and then the F would be here. So we'll probably see the little corner of that F for feet. And then the T. And remember, it's underneath our turtle, so I'm drawing it underneath 6 feet. And then to kind of show that this is not water and this is water is I'm going to draw the top of somebody like a kid's sneaker. All right. So I'll kind of do that. There's part of the shoelace maybe. Okay, just to kind of show that that is cement. And then over here, there's a lot of ways that you can show water. If you've got watercolors at home, that would be an amazing thing to do with the water here. You can do a more realistic route, which is where water, there's reflections in water. So it's going to kind of go in and out like this, like a lot of little squiggles. The surface of the water usually looks like this. So some areas are going to be darker than other areas. So I would just go around kind of coloring that in, maybe using some different blues for those darker areas. But ultimately, it really, however you want to do this is up to you. Or maybe you want to just be really uniform and color the thing a solid blue, which for the sake of time, instead of trying to get very realistic with this, I am going to speed the process up and just color it blue. Obviously, you guys have a lot more time to work on this than I do. So please take your time and do not rush like I am. All right? Because there's nothing to rush for. Y'all have so much time to get this done. All right, now for my little sidewalk cement area, I'm going to make a gray color. Get that all the way on there. And my friend's pool growing up had that like really pretty red Mexican looking tile along the edge of the pool. So I think that is what I'm going to make my pool look like. So I'm just going to kind of color this like it is a red, like it's red tile back here. Again, I can make it actually look like tile, but for the sake of time, I am speeding it up. So I could come over here and color it and really make it look like each individual tile just by using value alone and darkening some areas and keeping some areas light. Using the pressure, which I will eventually teach you is not the right way to do value, but that is okay, and that's probably the way you guys know right now, so not a problem. So I could go and really make it look like brick or tile, but for the sake of time, we're going to move on. And then I would most likely color my turtle, or maybe, since I didn't use this earlier, I could give him a little purple shell. Yeah, no, just kidding. That's weird. Okay. But you get the idea. I would finish coloring my little guy. Actually coloring him. And then, since I did decide to make this him a little smaller, I did do it on a separate paper, and I'm just going to kind of cover it like that. But that would be my perfect example of space, showing that he is on top of the floor underneath him. All right, now moving on to color. So with color, I was thinking about this. I kind of want to do like an ombre effect. So having it fade from one color to another, okay? So we'll go with red and orange and yellow. We're going to kind of do a sunset color almost. So with my little guy, I'm going to start this like so. Ooh, Lord. There we go. Coloring in nice and smooth. Yeah, hang on. Okay, so when I'm coloring, I'm going to start with that darker color. And it really doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm doing that out of preference. You can really start with whichever, lighter or darker, and at whatever end you would like. That is totally up to you. Okay, so as I'm going down, I'm going to kind of get lighter in my pressure. All right, so I'm not putting as much pressure down, and you notice that because the pencil doesn't look as, vibrant a red as it was earlier. And the reason why is I'm going to end up fading upwards. So now what I'm going to go to is the opposite side, which is my yellow. And so I'm going to start coloring down here, kind of fading it up, just like that, and having it almost meet my red. And then I'm going to go in the middle, and right in that little space before the red meets the yellow, I'm going to add in that pure orange. And then I'm going to go back up the direction of the red and getting lighter with my pressure the further that I go up, okay? So getting a lot lighter as we go. And then downwards, same thing. So a lot less pressure the further you get down or up, whatever direction you're going, until you have it basically fade into your yellow. So it should end up something like that. So I noticed at the bottom, I forgot to color my little fins. And you can see here that I have not even erased my pencil lines. You would want to do that before you start coloring, because once you start coloring, you're not going to be able to erase those pencil lines. So just keep that in mind. And then I need to go back to my red and give my little turtle a face. And I did end up choosing a color scheme, which we talked about as different ways of arranging color. But what it is it adds more contrast sometimes, or more, like the combinations look good together. So what I picked were warm colors. So that's your red, your orange, and your yellow. And then for the background, I'm going to do cool colors. So I'm going to grab my green marker. Quick. Okay. Alrighty. So I found blue, and I'm just going to kind of blend that in on the edges there. I like to outline my objects first so I know where not to have them, to not move them further. Okay, so I did find that blue marker, and I just kind of blended it in with the background. Now, remember, guys, none of mine are very realistic at all. But if you're able to be more realistic, go for it. Remember, this is your opportunity to show me everything you got in art. So I just wanted to be able to give my people who maybe didn't want to focus on drawing as much other options. Okay, so our last one is going to be value. I just did this. And I am so sorry about that. So what I did is, since this is the only one that I really have that's realistic, I wanted to make one that was semi-realistic. So I picked value because value is a great way to make something look realistic because it's showing the lightness and darkness of a form. It makes it look 3D when it's not. So what I did first was kind of give a brief outline of where all the sections of my turtle are going to be. And you want to do that part lightly. So be very light with your pencil so that you don't have like an outline, because you really don't want an outline for your shape. You want to focus on the change in value instead. So what I'm finishing up doing here is adding, is shading my shell. So you know how each section of a turtle shell is kind of raised almost like a bump or a speed bump. So what I'm doing, I identified where my light source is coming from. And that's so important because, you know, you don't want to make this side light over here and then dark over here. It needs to be consistent, as if light was actually shining on your object. So I have my light coming from here. So notice how each of these little sections get darker as they go to the other side of the sections, but also on the shell as a whole, my sections on this side of the turtle shell are significantly darker than this side. So notice how these little sections don't have any pure white in them. I didn't leave any of that pure white of the paper. But I still am going to get lighter as I go to the edge. Just not as light as I was doing on this side of my turtle. So I'm going to continue to do that all the way around, giving my turtle pretty cool looking shell. And you want to really be smooth in your shading. I know I'm not being as smooth as I know I can be, because I would like to speed this up. Okay, so then kind of go around here. Now these are very light because they are my closest to my light source. All right, so there is my shell of my turtle. Now what I'm going to do is finish working on its skin. So you know, turtle's skin is kind of like its shell in that it's kind of bumpy or scaly or whatever you want to call it. So what I'm doing here is kind of adding in those sections. And I showed you two ways of going about it. You can use this like scribble texture. It's actually called scumbling, but I think that word is silly, so I use scribbling. Where the tighter the scribble, the darker the value will be. The lighter and more loose your scribbling is, the lighter the value is going to be. And it adds its own texture to whatever you're shading. Or you can go this route same route that I did for this guy. And remember, the light's coming this way, so this part of my turtle is going to be lighter than this part. So what you can do is kind of be really light in your shading of each of these little, I don't know, pockets of skin. No, that sounds so weird. Whatever you call it, they're little bumps on their skin. But as I get closer out of the path of my sun or sun rays, those little things are going to get darker and darker, okay? Kind of like that. So either way, I think to me looks good, but it's really about preference. So you would do the same thing for their little feet down here. Create some more little bumps. And this foot is furthest away from my light source. So really, nothing on this foot should even come close to those lighter shades of gray or the white of the paper. So you really want to kind of make that guy dark. But on this side, you're going to have a little bit of that light shining here. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing over here as well. I'm giving it space. And then I'm going to start at my dark edge, kind of filling in. It's like I'm outlining each of those little, I don't know, skin cells and then getting lighter as I go. All right, now for the head of my turtle. The picture that I'm looking at, this dude's got like crazy looking skin. So we're just going to try and mimic that and make him look extra cool. All right, so there's kind of, I'm starting to get that shape for the skin on the turtle's head. I cannot tell if this thing has eyeballs or not, so I'm just going to assume that they are somewhere on the side of his little face, and just not draw them. Okay, now for shading the head, the light is this way, so the only real darker areas are going to be over here, but it's going to get light really fast because we are so close to the direction that the sun is in. So just kind of like that. And then if you want, you can add, like a fade in the background. I'm going to erase my little word that says value as well as my arrow and create a little value in the background if you want. If you don't, that is okay too. But I'm going to kind of give a little kind of texture. Just like a bunch of little straight lines like this. Hatching motion. This is a method of shading if you're shading with pen. But it still looks cool with a lot of stuff, or a lot of different art materials. Okay, so kind of get the last little bit of my very simple background. You don't want anything that's going to be too distracting of the main subject. And that is it, guys. We successfully completed every single one. So you can see here how all of these guys look. And it's really nice. I will hold it up for you. All right, guys. Hi. All right. We have now finished and completed our example for this assignment. So you can see here, I'm going to kind of try to set it Sometimes when you've been working on this for a while, it's going to lose those folds that you made in it in the very beginning. You might have to like force it to get back to where it was. Okay, so you can see here, this one, oops, trying to make it so you can see the whole thing. So here is our line. This turtle is representing shape. This one is representing texture. This one is 3D. You can see this little guy comes up, and then the beans are 3D as well. This one is representing space. This one represents color, and this one represents value. So I hope, guys, that this helped you, and I am super, super excited to see what y'all create. Remember, I understand completely that everybody is working from home, so please, if you're like, you know, Miss Lubo, I don't have any of those things that you used on this project, it's okay. Just use what you have and be as creative as possible. Okay? And I will see you later. Bye, guys.